Okay, James, this is an idea I had, and this is something that's gonna probably happen over the next couple of months. But you had written an articles at some point to be published because we were talking. I think when we were driving.
It was in your apartment right after we came in from doing a night of videos. I think the rain drove us inside.
Okay.
And you said something. You tendered this question.
Yeah. What it's essentially, in terms of books, right? What were the books? Because you've been reading since you were a tyke, essentially. What were the books that I would say developed, evolved, changed your worldview? And of course, this is going to be broken up into eras, right? ERAS of your life, because obviously things have developed and changed from your original views as a proper, intelligent, reasonable human being should do, right? So I figured this would be an intro vid to, like I said, the books that really made your worldview, developed them at different times in your life.
Well, I didn't read until later than most children. I couldn't. I was stupid. I was a special ed kid.
Yeah, me too.
So, second grade, other children were reading and I couldn't read at all. And it really upset me. I used to cry. Third grade, I was in a special ed class with 4 other retards. And then I looked around and I was like, okay, a guy named Kerry, he's obviously insane and he's like 4 years older than me and we're in the same grade. Okay, I'm not that guy. Benjamin was a very sweet guy, very big, heavy, Irish. He had a voice like a man when he was like 8. He had real bad freckles, and he had to sound out every letter and every word. It was painful. Of the 4 of us who were sane, I appeared to have the least trouble learning the material. I don't even know how I was taught how to read. I'm sure I could read at 10. But I know children who could read at 6.
Yeah.
So it was a lag. I remember my poor mother. I had an Encyclopedia of American History, and I was just interested in the battles, and I kept having her read the casualty list. I remember her crying when she kept rereading the casualties to me for the Battle of Shiloh when I was like 9 years old, and I was like, this isn't fair, I gotta do something. I actually have to learn how to read.
Oh.
So I think I was 3 years total in that reading class, and this is where the first book is. I mean, there were books that my parents got for me that I couldn't read yet. And the lady, she was tall. I think she was Italian. She kind of had like darker skin and curly brown hair.
Oh.
We thought she was real pretty, and she was super nice. She'd pat you on the back a lot. She didn't pat you on the head like a little kid. Interesting. It seemed like we were all people that were suffering from precocious puberty towards the end of it. When I got out of that class when I was 10, I was already starting to go into puberty, and some of these other guys, because they had been held back, I think, they were kind of like men. We were like the big guys that were starting to morph into men early, so that was kind of interesting. Maybe we would have benefited from something that was focused around physical education instead of sitting and reading.
Especially kids I knew, they were all like the violent criminal kids who I grew up, to be frank. But
yeah, so the first book that I know that influenced me was a series of blue books that were about the size of a series of books that my parents got me. They were golden books, but they weren't little golden books. They were illustrated and they were for boys. And my favorite one was Meet the Men Who Sailed the Seas.
oh wow.
Then there's Meet Andrew Jackson, Meet Christopher Columbus.
Oh no.
Meet Ferdinand Magellan, Meet Robert E. Lee.
Meet all the evil
And
people.
it was all of these,
Right.
biographies, and they were illustrated. And I probably, read Meet the Men Who Sailed the Seas like every week for a couple of years when I could finally read.
So this
That
is
was my
gold.
favorite one.
What was it called?
But-
Golden books.
Yeah, they were golden books, but they were. It was like little histories for boys, all focused on like the great men of history.
Alright, so I'll have
There
to-
were some things like Meet the Native Americans, but I'm not counting these things as books that were influential in my thought process. It was just the books that I wanted to be able to read, and my mother had been reading to me, and I've been looking at the illustrations.
Okay. So,
But the book, the first book that was influential to me was Sea Hunt, and it was a series of about the same size as it would have been like 5x8. They weren't 6x9s.
okay.
Maybe they were like 5x7s.
And soft cover, hard cover.
they were hardcover. The hardcover was blue,
Okay.
and I believe it was a cloth book. They were illustrated like a big illustration on a page and then text on the facing page.
Nice. Okay.
It was that kind of thing, which
that's
was very
pretty good.
similar to that Golden History Book for Boys series
Okay.
that I read. And it was about a crew of 4 men on a boat. It wasn't a ship. It was, I don't know much about boats, but it was one of those things with like 2 engines, and these guys would have adventures. They were pearl divers, they were sponge divers.
Oh, sponge dive.
They would get attacked by sharks,
Nice.
attacked by pirates. My favorite guy was a guy that had the more muscular character. He wasn't the captain. He had black hair and he had a mustache, and he was always with a knife. And I remember him like stabbing a hammerhead shark in the nose, like when he was under the Mediterranean.
Nice.
And what I took away from that was that I think it was well selected for the group of retards I was with. That was like us, you know, we're like these guys that are kind of out of the mainstream. You know, the world was really rough for us. We couldn't grasp its higher levels, and we had a lot in common with these 4 dudes on this boat.
Oh, wow.
You know, that it was something like, I guess, a TV series that appealed to both of my sons at the same level was the TV series The A-Team.
Oh, the 18.
Where it was
I
4
remember
guys
18.
and they had a van.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this were 4 guys in a boat, and
18.
I guess it was something. I don't know when it was made, and I don't know if it had anything to do with the Lloyd Bridges TV series Sea Hunt,
Sea Hunt,
which
yes.
I also loved. Which I
remember
thought was
Sea
really
Hunt.
great.
I mean, I remember in
So I don't
cable.
know if there's a relationship
Sea
there,
Hunt.
but I also really liked that series.
Alright, so the golden books, Meet the Great Men of History. Did they have Meet Genghis Khan?
No, I don't remember that. One of them was like
Napoleon?
that there was a general thing. Now this focused on Americans.
Oh, how
So
boring.
it was a general thing. It was like explorers and then Americans, but Meet the Men Who Sailed the Seas. Hanno was in that, the Carthaginian explorer.
Oh, okay.
You know, that was really cool.
Oh, there goes the Middle Lake.
So yeah, it was too late, I guess.
It's too late.
But
After you drank all of it.
So that was my goal, was to read those Golden History books for boys. But what really influenced me, I guess, the first book was just a sea hunt thing, because learning how to read for me was like key to trying to figure out the world. That was kind of like a Leviathan figure for myself and my 4 fellow retards, one of whom I became good friends with.
Oh,
and he
good.
wasn't sane. He did try to kill his grandfather.
Alright, well, you
with
probably
a
had it
lawnmower.
coming. Yeah. But, yeah, you probably was a Democrat. Oh, yeah, no, I don't. Alright, mention children's books. Meet the Great Men of History. Can you imagine a real Meet the Great Men of History book? That would be awesome to see, like, certain people drawing, like, on a cartoony style for children.
Yeah, my Andrew Jackson was probably my favorite figure out of the group. But I like the other great American guys. George Washington, Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin was one of them. They had an illustration of him like trying to seduce a woman that becomes his future wife, with like a pocket full of potatoes or something like that. So I got
Mr. Franklin.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird that my desire to be able to to read about all of these, founding fathers that, were largely the manufacturers of a lie that I would eventually work on uncovering. The desire to read about them eventually put me at odds with them, because how I learned how to read was about these four guys that were like outsiders that didn't belong to society, and they couldn't trust like the Coast Guard or the police or the pirates, and that ended up kind of being my life as a young man, where I had the cops and their darkling allies hunting me at the same time as I tried to earn my $10.25 an hour for rotating Mr. John's yogurt case.
All right, so that's the first. We've introduced this series, the books that shaped Mr. LaFond, and the golden books, history. The kids meet the, what was it called?
Well, there was Meet the Men Who Sailed the Seas.
Meet the Men Who Sailed the
Seas.
Seas.
So you find that one, and you'll find.
I'm gonna find that one. We'll have the cover on.
There was Meet Robert E. Lee and the rest of them.
I
think Stonewall Jackson had one. So I had to write this up to be able to answer the question. I had to write. I think better when I'm writing. Another reason why I really don't like doing podcasts compared to writing. If I get a choice, I always write. Because I don't think good verbally. I can recall things verbally, but I don't think well verbally. The article became 3 articles. They will post, I think, in early October or mid-October. I've already scheduled them to post on my site, but I broke it up into 3 phases. My minority, my youth, and then being a young man. So there was the stuff I read when I was learning to read, and we discussed the first one, the sea hunt, and then the stuff I read once I had basically been kicked out of high school and sent to the library for reading unauthorized books in class instead of paying attention to the teacher. Then the stuff that I read when I was a working man and I had a family, which takes me up to about 30 years old. So it's kind of like what I read preteen, what I read in my teens, what I read in my 20s.
But there are books that have influenced you much later in life, and you'll go over those, I assume, too.
Yeah, but this was, I think your initial question was, what kind of conditioned me to be susceptible to reading the same thing as another person and seeing it differently. I think that was kind of set by about the age 30.
But there's definitely there's a few books later I know that whoa.
There's a ton of books that where the information really
we'll get those in there too.
Really helped me with my inquiry, but as far as my really unacceptable frame of mind, I think that was formed by about age 30.
All right, cool. So this is, it's windy out here. Okay, this is fine. It feels great, actually. It's dry.
Yeah, this is nice.
This is nice, yup. All right, brother.
Thank you.
Yup.